Howdy, Ags. Welcome to Aggie Growth Hacks, the podcast that is sponsored by the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M. Here, we're dedicated to highlighting fast-growing Aggie entrepreneurs, learning how they overcame growth challenges with creative hacks, and connecting them with other entrepreneurs in the Aggie network. I'm your host, Greg Martin, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2001.
I'm your co-host, Chris Hunter, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1998. Whoop!
We got a little story for you, Ags. Gregg Gay, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1992, has taken his company from an idea and a business plan to one of the largest founder-owned companies in the employee support industry.
So pass it back and listen up to Greg as he shares some good bull.
Well, howdy, Ags. Welcome back to Aggie Growth Hacks. Today, we have got a special treat for you. Gregg Gay, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1992 is here. Gregg is the CEO of Asurint, and this company is one, if not the largest founder-owned companies in his space. So we're going to talk with Gregg about what it's taken to grow his company and really to be able to be successful throughout that. So welcome, Gregg. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, Greg, Chris, thanks for having me and inviting me to the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, we cannot wait to hear the knowledge that you have and to connect you with other Aggie entrepreneurs. But first, let me ask you, what is your favorite Aggie memory? You recently moved back to Texas. So what is your favorite Aggie memory?
I don't know that I have a favorite. I have so many, but it absolutely has to revolve around football weekend. We'd always have friends coming in from out of town, parties, tailgates, barbecues, bonfire, midnight yell, Dunkin' rings at the chicken. I mean, it's the laundry. It's the typical laundry list that people tick down. But probably the favorite is, of course, beating the hell out of Texas, which we did 4 out of 5 years from 1988 to 1992.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, it's funny you say that. Last weekend was actually the spring ring day and family weekend. And so there was a lot of conversation about Dunkin' rings and having a good time.
Yeah, it's definitely all things related to game day. In fact, I actually very distinctly remember I was sitting in the stands watching the A&M TCU game when Quentin Coriat put the hit on the wide receiver from TCU in 91.
I talk about that with my sons, the hit, right? And I was right there, first deck, like maybe 2 rows up, and it was fantastic, fantastic hit. All right, Greg. So tell us a little bit about Asurint and, what exactly it is that you do, and really how did you get into that?
Well, sure. Asurint is an employment screening company that qualifies candidates for employment. And that includes everything from full county, state, federal background checks, driving records, employment and education verifications, drug testing, some medical testing. And we do the entire compliance framework that encapsulates these services. So, what makes Asurint a little bit different than our competitors is that we excel really in the metrics that matter most to the employer. So we have best in class turnaround time from the time a client orders an investigation on a job applicant. And of course, that improves the human resources department's time to hire metrics. Our accuracy of our results is also best in class. As you can imagine, that's extremely important.
Extremely important.
Very, very important. We help our clients maintain compliance through our software platform. And we keep them abreast of new regulations that are in the committee level at in different states. And lastly, it's always important that you're a high value to your customers. And we are a highly efficient, data-centric, and configurable solution. And that allows us to remove a lot of the avoidable costs. So we continue to get really high marks from our clients for being great collaborators and problem solvers. And ultimately, our job is to help our clients run their businesses better. Now, to the second part of your question, which is how did you get into it? Nobody ever goes to college and say, I want to be CEO of a background screening company, right?
Really?
In fact, I would venture to guess that most people are not doing what they went to college to do. But I've always wanted to be, I guess I could sum it up by saying, I've always wanted to run my own company. I had an uncle that ran an oil field tool service business in Abilene. And and I always admired the fact that when we would go deer hunting out at his ranch, he had a big red dual wheel case tractor. And when you're in elementary school, you're like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And the only thing I know about my uncle is he owns his own business. So maybe if I own my own business someday, I can own a tractor like that.
Nice.
So do you own a tractor like that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. It's coming.
That's great. Well, Gregg, I was impressed as you were kind of telling a little bit of your background. I mean, I love how you focus on the clients first and you put their needs. I think that's a mark of every single entrepreneur that we've had on Aggie Growth Hacks to make sure that we're serving our clients in ways that they think they're valuable. But that also means that your industry and your business has had to change. So, and it's had to change because of 2020 and what we have, what we've gone through. So let me ask you this, not counting last year, you've have a very rapid growing company, but not counting last year, what were the challenges that you guys faced to growth and how did you overcome it?
You know, my response to this question is probably going to be something that every entrepreneur is going to face at some period if they're successful in their business. And our single biggest challenge since we started the company has to be talent. We were a bootstrap startup in a very competitive industry. And to be blunt, in the beginning, we hired what we could afford. And as the company became larger and more complex, we had to make some changes. In 2016, I made the decision to raise capital through a private equity firm. And we structured it as a minority transactions to make sure that we could maintain control. And that allowed us to do several things. It allowed us to provide liquidity to our angel investors that helped us get started. It simplified our cap table. We put growth capital on the balance sheet. We rebuilt our board of directors with individuals that were relevant to specific challenges that we saw in front of us. In fact, I remember very distinctly going to the private equity firm after they closed the round and telling them that the management team that they had just invested in needed to be revamped. So as you can imagine, that's an interesting conversation.
The check cleared first before you said that, right?
What's that?
The check cleared before you said that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't do anything until the check clears. But what I learned firsthand is that people who are very capable and excel at one level of the growth curve may not translate to the next phase. And as an entrepreneur and a leader, you have to be able to determine when the company may have passed individuals by, and you got to make that hard decision. So the growth capital allowed me to begin a very deliberate and methodical process to top grade my executive team. And it really starts at the top. It starts with the executives. That was about a 2-year endeavor to recruit 5 different new executives. And as I said, it was a very difficult decision at first, but when you hire A-level talent, the difference in return to the business versus a B or C player is just absolutely extraordinary. And many of these new executives were attracted to Asurint, of course, based on the business itself and the growth profile. But the fact that we now had professional money and a private equity firm that was backing us, that changed the risk profile of a smaller business. And this was very important to me in recruiting executives from much larger organizations to my smaller company. There's a whole ecosystem of executives and very talented individuals that live in that space between first professional money in through to liquidity. So talent was the problem. We solved it by having a fast growing company. We leveraged that to raise growth capital and change the risk profile of our company. That allowed me to recruit the people that I was looking for. And of course, as these executives have top players that follow them as well, right? So the upside continues to play out several levels deep in the organization.
Interesting. It's almost like going back to football, as we talked about football as your favorite memory, is that it's almost exactly like that, right? You bring in the head coach and they bring in all their other coaches with them, right?
Yeah.
So
and there's a ton of football, a ton of sports analogies in general that play verbatim into business.
Interesting. So we all know that this past year has been super challenging for every single business in the entire world, and there's a lot of businesses that are still struggling. What's been the most surprising challenge that came out of this past year for y'all?
Definitely the largest challenge has to be our ability to improve cash on our balance sheet, right? Um, in March of 2020, we saw a 45% decline in revenue in a period of about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Wow.
And nobody knew when we would hit bottom, right? I mean, it was just basically a free fall. And so, as a service business that's in the employment space, right, every company is going down their playbook, right? And we mostly deal in upper mid-market enterprise level clients. So these are experienced management teams, and they, we have a downturn in the economic crisis, pull out the playbook, go down the list, right? So we saw hiring dry up overnight. And this is really where an experienced A-level talented executive team really pays off. My new team had been through downturns before, and they knew the playbook. No one panicked. We just got together, started making methodical decisions. I read somewhere one time that you can complain about the wind or you can adjust your sails, right? And how quickly you get to the latter may be the difference in whether or not you still have a business when the economic conditions normalize. Our team very quickly became aligned on the current state of affairs, our best guess predictions and forecasts. We made quick decisions. We implemented those decisions immediately. We also raised some additional capital as insurance in case this black swan event lasted longer than we expected. We put together a game plan inside of a week. We vetted it against a very experienced board of directors and started executing. And some of those actions, in that playbook are things like, we managed our cash, we managed our expenses, we maximized the variance between accounts receivable and accounts payable. We negotiated with major vendors, like our landlord, to get rent deferral for 6 months. Unfortunately, we were forced to lay off some staff. We applied and received PPP funds. We took on additional debt. So, preserving the going concern of the business is the most important thing. And I do want to add one additional thought, and that is, how you treat and communicate the employees that are being laid off in those types of scenarios in a downturn, it matters, right? I mean, these are people that are being, really negatively affected, and spending the time and focus to get that right is really important. And aside from being able to, successfully improve our cash position during this downturn, I'm also very proud of the fact of how we communicated and managed that downturn.
Because it is no surprise that the employees that you did have to let go, that they still had connections with your existing employees. And if you would have done that in a not professional way, then the people that were still with you would feel those effects and be scared. But I mean, I love that you guys had a solid plan, and it sounded so easy. I mean, you just roll through. It's like, yeah, we pulled the playbook and just started executing it. But man, that had to be tough. That there a whole lot of stress, sweat, and just not knowing what's going on in that execution.
Yeah, no question. Experience matters in those types of situations.
Well, it sounds like, as we're recording this is the middle of April. And for a lot of the companies that both Chris and I work with, I mean, that there seems to be a little bit of strength back in the economy, and things are kind of picking back up. But what's one thing that you see, Greg, when you look out over the next couple of years, specifically in your industry, from your perspective, what are some things that are changing or have changed? And how are you positioning yourself to really capitalize on that?
Sure. Yeah, I got to be careful not to disclose anything related to our product roadmap that's confidential, but I can give you two general trends that I absolutely think are headed our way, specific to the hiring process for new employment. I think in our industry, we can expect more regulation from federal, state, and local governments. This does create specific opportunities to both help our clients stay in compliance through, our educational materials, our webinars, our ability to flex our new software platform that'll be completed this year. This platform is really a step function improvement in our ability to remain flexible around these types of changes. It has a lot to do with architecting visual workflows and things like that. So anytime there's a new compliance requirement, we can modify those workflows and keep our clients. Two examples I can give to put a finer point on it is, increasing the processes that the employer and the credit reporting agency, of which we are considered one, would be required to go through when an applicant has something derogatory on their report. In other words, we look at Chris Hunter and we find, some type of a conviction, right? Not that you have any, Chris, but
no,
I'm using you as a guinea pig. We already see some examples of states, counties, and cities requiring documented individual assessments on why that individual was not hired. And so we can help those workflows based on, where this individual was going to be hired and keep them compliant with the local, city ordinance or something, anywhere in the country. The second example would be how what they call GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation. We see it a lot in Europe. Mm-hmm. And how that's going to manifest itself here in the States. So I do believe this is on the way and, would regulate how companies protect personal data and rules requiring the consent of individuals for data processing. Now, we are one of the largest, if not the largest, criminal data aggregator in the country. So we're very interested to see how this pans out.
That's interesting. And in the marketing world, my world, we deal with GDPR, on Facebook and that kind of thing, but I never once thought about that in hiring. So That's interesting. So we talk about this on every one of our episodes and we'll bring it up, the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And we feel that that's obviously it's important to have that 5 to 10 year moonshot in mind when you're building the vision for your company. So tell us a little bit about your big, hairy, audacious goal.
Well, our big, hairy, audacious goal. Have you ever known an entrepreneur not to have a shot project? Right. Sometimes it's difficult to scale it down to one. Oftentimes they have too many. And I'm no exception. And we allocate time and resource to these moonshot opportunities. Now, COVID's put a temporary pause on some of these, but we'll reconvene that later this year, beginning of next year on these projects. At a high level, I tell our staff this all the time. We're here to win, right? We're not here to see how many people we can employ in our own organization. We're not here to just exist. If we're going to be involved in something, if we're going to be involved in a project, we're going to be involved in Assurint. We're here for Assurint to win and win against our competitors by providing better value to our customers. Winning is what it's about. So easy to say, very difficult to do. But we entered this industry to become the best at what we do. So while we currently rank maybe 6th or 7th out of hundreds of competitors in our industry in terms of size, our pre-COVID track record is we've been able to double the size of the company about every 36 months. And that obviously becomes more difficult the larger you become, evidenced by Assurant's growth rate versus some of our larger competitors. But our goal, I believe that we can triple the size of Assurant in the next 6 years. And I believe we can do it organically. So we have the product development roadmap and we've got the talent to get us there. And hopefully that'll get us back on the Aggie 100 list.
That's awesome, Gregg. To be able to triple your company on top of having all of that growth, that's a BHAG. But at the end of the day, you're doing that not for the sake of growth, is to be able to provide value to the people that you serve, to provide value to your employees, and to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, you have to provide value, or your business is not going to grow at all. There's a reason that larger companies gravitate to Assurant. It's when you're an entrepreneur and you bootstrap a business, name recognition is one of the most difficult things that you have to compete against. You can get out marketed, so your product has to speak for itself. Your culture has to be 100% aligned and behind those strategic initiatives, right?
So, Greg, we're rolling into the right lightning round. So let me ask you, what is your personal favorite hack? Is it, you can be either a personal hack you do on the personal side or the business hack, but when you think about what's something we can learn from you?
I would put this out to all Aggie entrepreneurs. If you have the ability to join YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, I would highly suggest you do. It's an international organization. When I started Assurint, my board chair said, Greg, when this company gets big enough, you're going to be in YPO. And my next question was, what is YPO? Right. So I've been in it a little over 10 years. It's been, absolutely fantastic. It's very, very insightful. I enjoy being in conversations with the smartest business people I can find and listen to how they solve problems. And for me, this has been through my YPO forum, initially in Cleveland and now down here in Dallas. We meet every single month to talk about business, to talk about family, and to talk about personal issues. And I didn't appreciate this audience as much, when I started the company as I do now. When you run a company, I woke up one day, I spent the first 8 years without a vacation, right? It's 7 days a week, all day, every day. And you wake up one day and you said, the only people I know are my bankers, my accountants, my board members, and my senior team. None of which I really want to hang out with on the weekends, right? I need to find peers of mine out there. They do exist. I need to pick my head up and go find them. And for me, I did that through YPO.
Nice. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Question number 2. Give us one book, podcast, or YouTube channel that you get a lot of value out of.
I should probably say as a CEO, I read a lot of books, but I'm the guy that typically waits for the movie. I learned better visually, through these type of podcasts. So definitely for me, I tend to gravitate toward TED Talks. It's a variety of topics of whatever sounds interesting to me. They're insightful, they're short. Again, a variety of topics that I find interesting. So the common theme is I love hearing the story behind the story of how really smart people solve problems.
Is there one TED Talk that you have that kind of steps out to you? Because I mean, for me, the quintessential one is the Simon Sinek Start With Why.
Yeah.
But is there one that you like? Yeah, check this one out.
No, I don't know that I have one in particular. I don't know that I have one in particular, but I do, just to give you an example, a level of talent that I like to have around. One of our board members, has given several TED Talks in marketing and marketing strategy. So
that's cool.
Surround
yourself with people that are going to push you forward. That's great.
Absolutely. The old adage of don't be the smartest guy in the room, right? I'm no longer the smartest person in the room, which is a great feeling.
Well, Greg, is there anyone in the Aggie network that has helped you out and has been really valuable to you on your journey through entrepreneurship that you just like to say thank you to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I so wished I remembered her name, but it has been 30 years since I've been back there. But I interviewed to be a CPA fellow because I wanted an accounting internship at one of the big 8 public accounting firms. Mm-hmm. And the short story is that I didn't make the cut. I didn't know on the lady that was on the selection committee that thought that I should have made it. And she might have been the only one that thought I should have made it. But nonetheless, I didn't make the cut. And she called me a couple of days later and said, hey, I know that you wanted an internship. Would it be okay if I called Coopers and Lybrand down in Houston to see if they would make room for one additional intern? And Coopers and Lybrand typically waited until the CPA fellows were announced to make their internship offers. And I said, absolutely. And, thanked her profusely. In fact, I think I sent her some flowers afterwards. He called me back in what seemed like 15 minutes and said, they've agreed to interview you and look forward to seeing you on Friday morning. So I went to the interview. I was hired for the internship. I received a full-time offer at the conclusion of my internship. I met some lifelong friends there, including one of my closest friends, who's also a current investor in Asurint. And all of this happened because she went out of her way to help somebody she really didn't know get to the next level. And for that, I'm eternally grateful, because that phone call changed the trajectory of my career.
That's so cool.
That's so cool. Very awesome. Great to hear. So how can the Aggie Network get in touch with you and support you moving forward?
Well, growth is the name of the game. So if you're hiring a lot of employees, I would encourage you to give Asurint a look. We'd love to serve you and your employment screening needs. Also, I would love to talk to any Aggie entrepreneurs that need help, need advice on anything from how to pitch angel investors, selecting a private equity firm, when to select a private equity firm, how to build a board, how to create incentive compensation structures. I just enjoy talking shop. And I've learned so much from really experienced and smart people. And I think it's really important to reach back and help others, especially when they're part of the Aggie family. So best way to get a hold of Asurint is through our website at Asurint.com. They can email me at ggay@Asurint.com, or they can call me at 216-420-1616.
Well, Gregg, thank you so much for just the value that you brought today to help us again to continue to focus on what's important to every entrepreneur, providing value to your customers, and just being so open-handed and willing to reach out, or to be reached out to, and to help other Aggies, entrepreneurs, take that next step. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
You're very welcome, and thanks for the offer.
How about that, Ags? Was that super insightful or what? There's some valuable hacks that Gregg shared with us. What was your favorite, Gregg?
Well, Chris, I loved how Gregg had the courage to look at the talent that was in his company and to do an honest assessment of whether or not that talent is the talent that they need to take them to the next level, to have the company achieve the strategic goals that he, as the founder, created and laid out for them. And that's so hard to do, because for a lot of different reasons. But I think Gregg showed time and again that he had the courage to be able to do that. And it's something that, as an entrepreneur, I can only imagine is so difficult to do. But if you don't do it, then you're not going to achieve your goals. And it's a question between, do you want to achieve your goals, or do you want to be a buddy? And I loved how the example time and again that he did that. What about you?
You know, I so agree with yours, of course. Mine is a little bit different. It's about what he said about joining YPO, Young Presidents Organization. To me, that organization sounds a lot like EO. I'm more familiar with EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and basically these are top level leaders of top level organizations, and they're performing at a really high level. And you get to meet with these guys, right? In fact, you're put into forums of people that are about the same size as your company. And it's super important to be aligned like that, because if you're just surrounding yourself, like he said, with your accountant or your lawyer or whoever, right? You're not learning, you're not moving yourself forward and learning what you need to do in order to move your organization forward. So that's going to be mine, is run with people that are faster than you, and also that'll force you to keep up.
Yeah. And I loved how Gregg said that, but then at the very end, what did he do? He said, I want to be that person for other Aggie entrepreneurs. Here's my phone number. Here's my direct email. And so, Ags, if you want to run with Gregg, then I so encourage you to reach out to him.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Aggie Growth Hacks. Chris and I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we hope that you leave us a 5-star rating, or any rating, on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us right now. We hope that you'll check us out on aggiegrowthhacks.com, where you can hear all of our previous episodes. You can connect with us and you can get insight into the Aggie Growth Hacks workshops that we have, or our hack shops.
Aggie Growth Hacks was produced by fellow Aggies Kyle Ackerman and Ben Wiggins with Podcast Architects. We also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M. Since 1999, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship has served as the hub of entrepreneurship for Texas A&M University. If you're an Aggie entrepreneur or even a wantrepreneur, head over to their website and find a program that's right for you. Join us next time when we connect with another great Aggie entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter.
And I'm Greg Martin. Thanks and gig 'em.